Farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend here on 650 CQM and 980 CJME. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com. It is great to be with you here on this weekend edition of the program. Thanks so much for joining us here today. You can always provide your feedback by sending me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line. That is 855-776-6147. Winter continues here in early December. Hopefully you had yourself a very productive week on the farm, no matter what you were taking care of. There was a lot of activity this week in Canadian agriculture. Indeed, of course, we had the Grow Canada Conference, which is the old Crop Life Conference. It was happening in Ottawa, so a lot of the crop sector gathering in the nation's capital. We also had the APAS annual general meeting. APAS is a general farm organization in Saskatchewan. They had their AGM this week, and we're going to hear from the new APAS president today here on the program. Bill Prybylski will be with us. He farms outside of Yorkton. We're also going to hear from Saskatchewan resident Ann Wasko of the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Ann is going to provide a bit of an update on what's going on in the cattle markets. And speaking of cattle, we'll also hear from the Executive Vice President with the Canadian Cattle Association, Dennis Laycraft. He's going to talk about why Canada has approved the use of 3-NOP. And this is a feed additive that has been registered in many countries around the world. And it is used to reduce methane emissions. And there's a whole bunch of stuff happening on social media. People, asking conspiratorial questions about it. Why is this registration happen? Why weren't people consulted? And honestly, none of that could be further from the truth, or all of that couldn't be further from the truth. Long process, and Canada was very late to the party here in registering this product. So we're going to hear from Dennis Laycraft on that as well. Earlier this week on the RealAg Radio podcast, I had a chance to catch up with Fillmore, Saskatchewan's Jake Legui. We talked about, planning for 2025 and some of the things that he's working on here in early December.
There is no shortage of things to do, that's for sure, and that goes across every aspect of things, whether it's the farm or Sask Wheat or just the family. So yeah, always lots going on. That's good.
As you think about 2025 in front of us, what's on your mind from a planning perspective? As you work on some of those farm issues, what's top of mind for you?
I mean, I think there's probably lots of people that would say the same thing, but really cost control is probably one of the major things that we're trying to focus on a bit. I mean, costs of just about everything have not come down very significantly at least, and commodity prices have. So something's got to give. So we're trying to find, opportunities to, I guess, try to find a little bit more margin when we look ahead to next year. But the challenge, of course, is what are commodity prices going to be and what are yields going to be?
Yeah, well, of course, we're a long ways away from having answers on the yield front. And, when I spoke to the Agrimark group in Ontario on Tuesday morning, we talked about this cost control thing. And I think one of the challenges is to not go too far, right? Where there's a lot of costs to eliminate, but you also don't want to stub your toe, like a self-inflicted wound where it's like, yeah, okay, I didn't do that because I was all worried about cutting costs. That was my only focus. And I probably, I'm being hyperbolic, but I probably should have put some nitrogen on the ground. You know what I mean? You can really hurt yourself if you go too far with it.
There's a real fine line there. And I mean, when it comes to direct inputs, we know that if we're reducing what the crop needs, try to save a buck, it's going to cost us. So that's not a place that I'm looking for savings. I mean, there's opportunities in finding cheaper products to spray on our crops, doing our best to find the lowest cost fertilizer, although unfortunately there's only so much we can do about that. And maybe we can take advantage of years of building phosphorus in our soils a little bit here and take at least a small break on that part of it. So that's kind of where in the direct inputs we have some opportunity. The most important piece that we can look at to try to cut costs is in labor power machinery. I mean, that's where there's a lot of costs that maybe we can look at finding some ways to bring those down. It's not easy, and you're not going to cut it in half, that's for sure. But every little bit helps.
That was Jake Legui of Fillmore, Saskatchewan on the RealAg Radio podcast and the Farm Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada on Thursday. Also this week, Stats Canada is out with their crop production numbers, and total wheat production is estimated to be up 6.1% over last year. Durum up 43.6%. We've got winter wheat down 9.8%, spring wheat up 2.2%, barley down 8.6%. We've got chickpeas up considerably. Canola down 7%. So they're expecting a 17.8 million metric ton crop. That's down from last year's 19.1 million metric tons. So some of you that thought we would see under 17 million metric tons, well, right now Stats Canada is saying 17.8. We'll have to see what happens with that. But sunflowers down considerably. Oats up 27%, 3.3 million metric tons. So you can go to get the full story at RealAgriculture.com. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more of Real Ag on the Weekend. When we come back, we'll be talking to Bill Prybylski. He is the new president of APAS. He'll join us right after this.
For balanced nutrition with micronutrients, the best answer is Wolftrax DDP from Koch Agronomic Services. To learn how Wolftrax can ensure nutrient availability through a crop's growth cycle, visit wolftrax.ca.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters, and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School, brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
Maximize productivity and profitability with an innovative all-in-one approach to farming. Combining accounting, business planning, agronomic field planning, and advanced technology, MNP Ag Intellect delivers personalized solutions that empower you to make confident, data-driven decisions. Visit mnp.ca today.
And welcome back to Real Ag on the Weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CGME. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com. And we're joined right now by the brand new incoming, well, as of this week, incoming president of APAS, which is a general farm organization in Saskatchewan. It is Bill Prybylski. Bill, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Well, hey, congratulations, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, good stuff. Bill, tell us where do you farm?
I farm just about 20 miles west of Yorkton on the east side of the province. Farm here with my brother, my son, and a couple nephews, and we have a mixed operations. We grow cereals, oilseeds, pulses, and then we run some commercial cows.
And you've been heavily involved in APAS for quite some time. You've been vice president for the past 6 years. What is it about being president of APAS that what excites you about it? What's the opportunity?
Well, for me, the biggest opportunity is to be able to have some influence on ag policy. We know that a lot of times our voice maybe isn't heard as loudly as we would like it to be. So, I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to sitting down with the people that are making the decisions that affect our farms and trying to talk them through from a farmer's perspective what it is that policy, how it's affecting farmers and what we need to see going forward. So, yeah, just that ability to have some influence on farm policy, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Bill, what are some of the policies that you feel are really important that need to be pushed and talked more about in not only rural circles, but maybe in places like Saskatchewan and Regina as well?
Sure. Well, I guess as long as farmers have been growing grain in Saskatchewan, we've been fighting with the railroads, and that struggle continues. So, there's some things like the rail carbon surcharge that we certainly would like to see eliminated. We feel it's completely unfair to producers to be paying that carbon tax on behalf of the railroads. The MRE, the maximum revenue entitlement that the railroads use to calculate their freight rates. We need to see that remain. That's really the only protection farmers have from escalating freight rates because of the lack of competition. So we need to make sure that MRE stays in place. And then there's things like grain contracts. We've seen in the past few years how farmers have been affected detrimentally by unfair grain contracts. We're certainly looking forward to the opportunity to have some discussion on making those grain contracts fair. And then the livestock industry right now, things are looking a little rosier in the livestock industry, but for many years it hasn't been that way. It's been a struggle. So we would like to see some changes to some of the programming to better reflect the needs of livestock producers in the province.
Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of issues. In the case of the railways, there always is this rub. As you look across the grain supply chain, what needs to happen? Is it a case there needs to be more regulation or less regulation? Like, what would make an organization like APAS feel that you're moving in the right direction?
I think just the recognition that the movement of grain is absolutely essential, not only for producers, but for the province economy, for the country, and really for the world. That it's imperative that our grain gets to where it needs to be in a timely manner. Obviously, food security has been a big issue over the past several years, and any disruptions in that supply chain are seriously threatening that food security. So I think just the recognition that the movement of grain is absolutely essential. And, I think the governments and the railroads and the unions need to recognize that and do whatever steps are necessary and use whatever tools they have available to ensure that grain moves in a timely manner.
Yeah. Farm profitability is something that we've been hearing a lot about from audience members at RealAgriculture.com. 25s, there's some slimmer margins out there. There's a lot of concern across farm country in Saskatchewan and other provinces and into the U.S. as well. The farm economy has got some tougher times right now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, we recognize that we've come through a couple of pretty good years with some higher commodity prices, and as those prices have come back down, our input costs have certainly not come down much, if any, and certainly not at the same rate as our commodity prices have. So there's going to be some struggles. Absolutely, higher interest rates, high fertilizer prices, fuel prices, and taxes have certainly been a thorn in the side of producers for many, many years, and will continue to be so. So I think it's very imperative that we as an organization continue to press for things like the removal of the GST from our heating gases used for heating barns and the drying grain and the rail freight issues that we've talked about. That it's really important that we continue to strive for fairness in those systems. How concerned are you about what we could see out of an incoming Trump administration when you hear about 25% tariffs and things like that? Does that strike a chord at all in terms of some of the you had your AGM this week and some of the hallway discussions? Absolutely. That was definitely a topic of discussion in the hallways and the coffee breaks, that there's concern out there, absolutely, that the 25% tariff on exports to the States, when we know that the amount of business that we do with the States, the amount of commodities that we ship over there, a 25% tariff would be absolutely devastating to the ag economy in this province. We know that we rely very heavily on exports in the ag sector, and anything like that, supply chain issues or tariffs would be devastating. So we're hopeful that there'll be some sort of a solution before that comes to fruition, but we definitely have to be vigilant on it and do what we can and encourage our federal government to do what they can to avoid that. And the other thing I think would be definitely from a policy perspective, kind of top of mind for a lot of producers in Saskatchewan, is making sure that we've got up-to-date, modernized business risk management programs too, right? And so that farmers have the tools to manage through some of these kind of tougher times we're dealing with right now. Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, at APAS, we're in the process of putting together a task force to look at the BRM programs. We know that the existing program is set to expire in March of 2028, so we're going to start right away looking at all those programs and trying to come up with recommendations as to how the programs can be improved upon. Particularly for the livestock industry, there's been a recognition, I think, for many years that there's deficiencies in those programs for the livestock producers. So we need to ensure that there's adequate protection and that the programs are responsive. We've seen in the past where we're in drought situations where there is funding there, but the time that it takes to access those fundings have been somewhat problematic and a bit of a sore spot with producers in that they've been able to access the funds, but by the time they get the funds, a lot of the financial damage has already been done. Bill, want to say again, congratulations to you. You've got a lot of days on the road in front of you, because I know they keep the APAS president very busy, and I'm sure you're well aware of that. So you got to try to balance, taking care of everything at home on the home farm, plus being responsible for the care of APAS and its members. So want to wish you all the best, and I'm sure we're going to get lots of chance to talk going forward. And have yourself a Merry Christmas. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. And looking forward to sitting down with you and talking about the issues that's relevant to our producers in the province. And thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. Yeah, great stuff. I'm sure we're going to be able to see each other at Crop Production Show coming up in Saskatoon in January. That is the new president of APAS, Bill Prybylski. Great to have him here on the show. You're listening to RealAg on the weekend here on 650 CQM and 980 CGME. RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops.
It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com, the Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Farmers' trust is everything. Genesis Fertilizers is making real progress towards providing reliable, locally produced fertilizer. Join the ownership group and protect your bottom line. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
Let's talk beef markets for the beef market update with Ann Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Ann, how are we doing?
I am great today, Shaun.
Yeah, you're enjoying early December here?
Yes, it's fine. I know, it's just flying.
Yeah. Okay, lots of time to get to Christmas shopping in. I'll start maybe about the 21st-ish around. Okay. Are you an early Christmas shopper?
Yeah, for the most part. But there's the odd one that stumps me, but for the most part, I'm early. Yeah.
I knew you were a proactive person. Well, we got to be proactive about these markets too. Prices have been strong through the fall. There is risk to manage as well. Something you're pretty passionate about. What's the cash update here right now? What's going on in the U.S. and in Canada?
Yeah, let's start in the U.S., Shaun. Kind of a quiet week coming out of the holiday last week for the U.S., so there hasn't been a pile of cattle trade. I did see some cattle in Kansas passing at 190 yesterday, which is steady. So let's assume we're going to be on top of that, but we don't know. There was a little bit of trade in North Nebraska kind of areas, 190, which is anywhere from steady to 2 lower, and some dress trade in the North at 297. That's up 2. So again, I think when all is done, we're going to see things settle out steady or better, but still kind of waiting on it. We did see that choice cutout close about $4.50 lower than last week, so 307.85 on the choice. Things are going to just kind of slow down now as we head into the holidays. A lot of the buying's been done for the season, so this is pretty typical. But I think looking back, as we can now that we're into the 12th month of the year, beef demand overall for 2024 has just been, really has had a great run, to put it in a nutshell. Just to finish up on prices in Alberta, we did see some improvement in our cash market, 415 dressed. That's 4 to 7 better than last week. The news, I just wanted to remind folks on carcass weights in Canada, we did kind of see them back off. They made their highs there in October, early November. They backed off last week to 977 for a steer weight. 2020, which still sounds big. 2024 is going to finish at about, it looks like 946, 25 pounds heavier than last year. So an annual average historically is about 7 or 8 pounds per year. And this year we're adding 25 to it. So a big jump in weight, same kind of storyline in the US. And again, the economic driver there was fairly reasonable cost of gain, record high fed cattle prices, 1 + 1 = 2. Let's make the cattle bigger.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been talking a lot about, Wednesday we were talking to Jody Lawrence about the corn market, and even going back the past couple of weeks, sideways trade, which is really kind of allowed. Not only we have lower cost of gain for cattle feeders, but we've also got maybe some stability in that corn price, which I probably eases their stomach a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Now as we start going forward in 2025, we'll be talking about what kind of opportunities there are, but most of it's going to center around weather, right? I mean, acres and trendline yield and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be the thing that we watch, not just from the grain side, but from the cattle side as well. Yeah.
Speaking of sideways trade, I just pulled up December live cattle. And basically for the past year, and we have floated about in the $15 range, 175 to 190.
Yeah, it's funny how markets, even going back almost a year now, Shaun, kind of They made that big move higher, especially on the deferred futures, and the markets have, kind of caught up to that. And the market leads, for sure in terms of those futures markets and kind of sets those ranges, if you will. But for the most part, I think our ranges are set for the next little while.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
StatsCan did an update when it comes to live cattle exports.
Yeah, we had a couple things out of StatsCan this week. This is for October. And we have been moving a fair number of fed cattle south this year. Go back to the summer when we had the strike in Ontario at the Guelph plant. So we saw lots of fed cattle exports and cow exports back then. But it's continued pretty steady with lots of fed cattle out of the west moving south as well. So in October, our fed cattle exports were up 58%. Year to date, we're up 31%. So we're going to end around, well, right now we're at about 380,000 head have gone south with 2 more months to go. Cow exports were down though. So fed cattle exports up, cow exports down. Year to date, we're down 2%. Feeder cattle exports been super quiet in 2024. They were down in October 32%, and year to date we're down 16%. So the flow has certainly been more on the slaughter cattle. And as you are well aware, feeder cattle supplies in Western Canada, or in Canada for that matter, are tight. And so we're not going to be sending feeder cattle south. On the opposite, we're bringing feeder cattle in.
Yeah. And just market dynamics driving those in that pretty substantial increase in live cattle going south.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things. Our plants aren't running Saturdays, so we're running at a smaller kill overall in both the U.S. and Canada in terms of not running Saturdays, and so efficiency in terms of where cattle need to go to make the most sense, and who needs the cattle from a supply perspective. Just a reminder that Pacific Northwest region is part of our region when we talk about slaughter cattle. And
I've said it lots, but those north PNW plants or area plants need Canadian cattle. The part of their business plan is Canadian cattle.
Yeah, and especially U.S. supplies are going to tighten some more in 2025. I mean, this storyline we're talking about right now, we will be talking about a year from now.
Yeah, and it was Tyson plant closures this week. Also saw Bloomberg had a report that JBS is considering shutting down or scaling back production in 11 of its Brazilian plants. What's driving this right now? Because what I'm reading a lot is it's high prices, but is there more to it?
Oh, I think there is. These things, these plans have been in the works for a long time. So in terms of the Tyson deal, first of all, that was a non-harvest facility. So we're talking about processing. And they had increased their efficiencies at other nearby processing facilities. So to make the processing of beef more efficient, they're moving it to other areas. So yeah, you are closing down some of these older plants. So we shouldn't be all that surprised by that. And then the supply piece, I think the Brazil piece talks to that a little bit. As supplies of cattle, not just in North America, but Brazil as well, get smaller. Well, this year, next year, following year, 2025, 26, you are going to see, of course, that shackle space issue show up a little more in terms of there's going to be, fewer cattle. And we've talked also in other calls about increased capacity in other places, new plants coming on. So we've got more capacity overall in the U.S. than we did a year ago. So it's going to be a shackle space discussion, which is in the cattle feeders' favor at this point in time.
I've been traveling a lot the last number of weeks, and everywhere you go, no matter what part of Canadian agriculture you're talking to, a lot of concern about potential tariffs with the U.S. Probably no group more on that front as concerned as maybe people in the beef industry. I'm sure you've been hearing from a lot of people that read your weekly newsletter.
Well, beef and pork, because both in Canada, both of our industries, rely, beef about half, and on the pork side, well, more than half in terms of exports. And our largest and most important market, obviously, is the U.S. So, your piece that you did a week ago on your panel was great, and I would urge everyone to listen to. The four of you went through a lot of the pieces of it really well, but just to reiterate just how important that is. And we know it, the industry knows it, and we'll have to be proactive. But it's hard, it's hard to know what it means in terms of, the threats over the bow versus, once we get to January 20th and the work begins.
Yeah, good point. Hey, Ann, thanks so much for joining us here today for the beef market update. All the best to you. Have a great weekend.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Shaun.
When we come back here on RealAg on the weekend, we're going to talk about 3NOP. This is a new feed additive that helps reduce the methane emissions from cattle. One of the things that a lot of people have made a big deal about. Here's a technological solution for that issue. A lot of hysteria being created. What are some of the facts? We'll talk to Dennis Laycraft of the Canadian Cattle Association when we come back. You're listening to RealAg on the weekend, of course, here on 650 CQM and 980 CJME.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by BASF and Syngenta Canada.
The next generation of Brandt U-Trough augers is here. They can move up to 9,000 bushels per hour, even in the harshest conditions. Visit your local Brandt dealer today.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us. Hey, on the weekend, make sure you check out here, RealAgriculture.com. We got lots of great content that doesn't make it into this program. We just give you like a snippet, a sliver, a slice of all the things we're talking about in terms of the world of agriculture. I encourage you to go to RealAgriculture.com and just browse through all the different content, the pieces of the interviews we're doing, the opinion columns are getting written, really keeping you up to speed on all things agriculture. And would love you to have you subscribe to our Real Agriculture e-newsletters that go out as well. You can do that by going to realagriculture.com/subscribe. So much fun. Lots of great stuff for you. I love this time of the year, by the way, because I am traveling like crazy. Basically live in an airport. I look at this. We're kind of slowing down now between Christmas here and Christmas. Next week I'm going to be in Las Vegas speaking at the Milk Business Conference. It's a Western United States dairyman meeting. It's going to be really good. I've been to it before. Fantastic. Huge American dairies. Going to talk about trade policy and dairy policy. Looking forward to that. And then we'll kind of settle in for a couple weeks before Christmas. And then January hits. Once we get to crop production show in Saskatoon, it is pedal down to about the end of March. And speaking at lots of meetings, got numerous speaking events in Saskatchewan amongst some other Canadian provinces as well as U.S. states. So really looking forward to the new year and interacting with you, the audience. Always look forward to that. If you have any questions, or you are interested in having me speak at your event, you can do that by sending me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Okay, now, recently, there's been a bunch of noise being made about Canada's registration of a product called 3NOP. Now, I'll mention this. Not a lot of this product is being used in Canada currently because of supply issues, okay? Canada was relatively late to the party, so to speak, when it comes to registering this product. It is a feed additive, so you mix it into the cattle feed, and it assists in lowering the methane emissions of cattle. Because, hey, that's been something that this federal government, other governments around the world have made a kind of a big deal about it, but, the environmental impact of the cattle industry. Well, here's a technological solution to assist in dealing with that challenge that some have brought up. But people are making a bunch of noise this week about this. So what I did is I got a hold of Dennis Laycraft. He's Executive Vice President of the Canadian Cattle Association. He's been with CCA for quite some time. He knows the history here. Wanted to ask him about 3NOP and get a bit of a history lesson and his perspective on the registration process of this product. So here's Dennis Laycraft from CCA.
Yeah, well, first of all, 3NOP was approved in many countries before Canada, so we're kind of playing catch up, to be honest. It was approved in Europe, it was approved in the United States, approved in Australia. Could go down the list, and we're looking for it as a product that shows great potential, and it's designed to reduce methane emissions. So having access to the same tools, and it's been studied in all of these markets from looking carefully at the science. It's demonstrated it can be effective in reducing emissions. It's also been demonstrated to be safe. That's something we absolutely insist on. Any product that gets used in our industry has to go through those rigorous evaluations. Now, this one's a little different because it's actually, typically we approve products for animal health or for efficiency. Now we're starting to get into a new area of approving products that can have environmental benefits. In this case, it's being described as an environmental benefit. You're reducing emissions. So you're not necessarily using this product for animal health or efficiency, but for other reasons. And, we're going to see more of that, hopefully having products that are available. But again, we want them to be completely science-based, not politically based, which is a problem in some other parts of the world. You don't want people just, demagoguing everything here. You want to have, the right process that does look at does it work, first of all? And of course, we always want to make sure we're going to be absolutely behind the fact that it has to be safe.
Is it currently being used in any level of significance, or because I've heard rumors that it's not right currently, even though it is registered?
No, my understanding is maybe a few feed trials. There's been such demand around the world that first of all, it's been, it's taken a while to build up even available supply. And then, of course, when you're in that situation, it typically has a higher price when it's a shortage. So even developing kind of the market and demand around it, again, it's how you need to start to be able to quantify, if you're using it, how much of a reduction in emissions, which then can put you into a position where you could maybe start selling that. But that's all in a fairly early developmental stage. And, again, we're always going to hold to the position that we want our regulatory bodies, and we're confident they did, we want our regulatory bodies to be taking a look at these things properly, but at the same time, they're doing it in lockstep with our, other countries that we follow closely, the United States, Australia, Europe. All of them have very, very strong regulatory processes around this.
And again, this is, methane emission reductions through technology and innovation, as opposed to some sort of stick approach. So, and like you mentioned, Canada, not the first to the stage here. We're very much playing catch up. We could have a whole discussion about that. But hey, Dennis, thanks so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it. Great news on the trade deal with Indonesia. Benefit to beef producers across Canada, as well as other commodities like pork and durum and others. So thanks a lot for chatting with us about it.
Oh, you're welcome. Have a great day, Shaun.
That was Dennis Laycraft, Executive Vice President with the Canadian Cattle Association, talking about the registration of 3NOP, a feed additive that helps reduce the methane emissions of cattle. So there's the goods and the history lesson on that. Dennis highly involved in something that the cattle industry very much pushing for as a technological solution to this issue that's been raised by activists and others concerned about emissions. So wanted to get the information out there and provide some facts to you. So, hey, if you have any feedback on today's program, we'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Other ways is to find us across different social media platforms or Real Agriculture, all across all the abundance of programs or platforms that are out there. Like I've been telling you, make sure you check out realagriculture.com to keep up to speed on all things agriculture. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll chat again with you next week. Cheers.